Hey, Chris Fox, thanks so much for coming on, my friend. Excited to hear some of your experiences and your reflections on coming through the 90-day pipeline.
Sure, I'm happy to do it.
Chris, why don't you start off by telling people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and paint us a picture of what things were like before you hopped into the program.
Sure. So, what I do is I focus on thought leadership strategy, planning, and execution with a very strong focus on a market that I call the financial innovators market. In other words, either large banks or fintechs or startups that are delivering innovation in financial services and banking. So, that's my market. I help them really pull out their strongest and best thinking and get it out there into the world in a way that helps them drive their business results, whether it's new clients, whether it's broader awareness of what they're doing, whether it's acquiring more of a marketing footprint, whatever it may be.
Awesome. And Chris, paint me a picture of what was going on in the business, some of the challenges you were experiencing before we started working together.
So prior to working with you, I was bringing in a satisfactory amount of revenue. I had a good volume of business, but the business was very much in fits and starts. So I would get a new client, usually through word of mouth, and often from prior clients, because many of my clients come back to me again and again. So get that new project in place or that new client relationship in place, do all the work, get to the end, maybe take a short pause because it might have been an intense project, and then back to the well in terms of business development, following up with contacts, following up with people that I hadn't spoken with in a while, occasionally trying to bring new people into the fold through posting and other thought leadership of my own. But it was this very irregular process. There wasn't anything smooth or systematic, and that's where I was.
And what was kind of the trigger event that made you realize something needed to change?
It was more just, I guess I would say two things. One of which is, as I was saying, the business was satisfactory, but I did have aspirations for it to grow more. And as I thought through what that might look like, I realized that if I wanted it to grow more and to grow better, I couldn't keep doing things the way that I had been doing them before. So there needed to be some kind of systematic approach to business development from the earliest stages of the pipeline all the way down to client close. If I tried to start up that process at the end of every project, the results were going to remain irregular. So that was the challenge that I needed to solve. If I wanted to grow, I knew I couldn't do the same things the same way, so I needed a different approach.
So at some point in that process, we crossed paths and we started talking, and you got more familiar with my work and the work that we do inside the 90-day pipeline. I'm curious to hear what made you decide, and if you even remember kind of when you made the decision, what made you decide to say, yeah, this is the right fit for me. This is what I need to do.
I don't remember exactly how I came across you. I think it may have been a LinkedIn video shared by someone that I know, or something like that inspired me to reach out and begin a dialogue with you. And what really sealed the deal for me was the conversation that you and I had at the start of the process. You asked me a lot of really great questions about what I wanted to do with my business, why I wanted to do with it. You asked me some tough questions that I didn't have very good answers to, and I realized during the conversation I should have had an answer to that question, and that was the exact reason why I needed to go through a process that would allow me to give a really coherent answer about, well, what is my business development process? How do I intend to grow my business, et cetera?
Fantastic. So Chris, here we are now, and you've come through the 90-day pipeline. We're now still continuing to work together and taking the next step in your business. But I want you to walk me through what were some of the big shifts, the big takeaways that you experienced coming through the program. And let's start with the first one.
So the first one kind of lines up to what I was just saying, which is I had this very sporadic and inconsistent approach to business development. The first mind shift was the sense that that absolutely must continue on a steady state basis, and it needs to be part of what I do. My business isn't simply delivering top quality work to my clients. That's a piece of it. But if my business is a business, it also needs to have a steady business development happening. So that's mind shift number one. Mind shift
Uh,
number two
And what would you,
was,
just on that note, Chris, what would you say was preventing you from being able to execute on something consistent in the past?
it's so easy to get caught in the weeds. And I don't want to say that in a negative way. My clients aren't weeds. They are very fully formed trees and bushes that are thriving and doing well. But it's very easy to get caught up in the day to day of, I've got this project. I'm going to do my absolute best to get it done in the way that my experience and instinct tells me it needs to go. And I focus all my energy on that. And realizing that I can do that, and also it's not an either or where I have to stop working and say, okay, now I'm going to do business development instead. But the two things are actually part and parcel of looking at what I am presenting into the world, not as a bundle of personal expertise, but as an actual business.
Awesome. Love it. What was that second shift for you, Chris?
So the second shift was understanding and internalizing how much managing a pipeline of everything from initial awareness to, you know, potentially qualified leads to serious conversations and then finally closing business, that really can be made very systematic. I was doing it in a loose, intuitive way. I was having the success that I had. Didn't necessarily see a need to formalize that because it was working okay. But in going through the 90-day pipeline program, I was able to see, oh, you can actually take this and make this a running machine that delivers much more consistent results, that works more reliably. And if you're doing it well, it even as you build up steam and momentum and you learn how to do it, the machine kind of runs itself. It needs a little bit less care and feeding than going outside and trying to fix that car that was stalled out in the back once again because you've been focusing on something else. So
Yeah.
that's my number two.
Chris, I'd love to talk a little bit about positioning here as well, because if I recall correctly, when we first started working together, the positioning was broader than it should have been, and we really narrowed the focus in particular to working with the financial services innovators. Tell me a little bit about how we came to that conclusion and how that's kind of shifted things in your marketing.
Yeah, so the simple answer to that is within the 90-day pipeline program, you've got some lessons up front that actually bring people through the process of positioning themselves. So yes, I did have a fairly broad positioning that was focused on thought leadership, which is obviously it's a really wide concept that could apply to many different industries, many different scenarios, etc. So going through that process of, first of all, narrowing down an industry focus, second of all, tightening up what I actually mean by thought leadership when I'm having a conversation with a client. This is what I'm saying, because everyone in the world is talking about thought leadership. If you Google it or look around on LinkedIn, there's endless volumes of chatter about it. Well, what is it that I, Chris Fox, am going to offer you as a financial services innovator in the area of thought leadership that will deliver the results that you want? That's how I was able to narrow down that positioning.
And how has that kind of changed the sales conversations, the marketing? Like what effect has that had on everything?
Really a couple of things. One is I think it just makes the conversations more purpose oriented that I do have with clients. When I'm speaking with the clients or prospective clients, it's very clear why we're both there. Prior to having that stronger positioning, I would have a lot of, oh, let's have an interesting conversation. And sometimes it would work, sometimes it really wouldn't go anywhere because it wasn't necessarily about anything specific. That specificity that I can now bring to whether it's an initial email or LinkedIn message or a much more in-depth process of, conversation, negotiation, figuring out what the client needs and how to deliver it. It just tightens everything.
Excellent. Chris, what would you say, it was about the structure of the program that helped you go down this path? Because you said in the beginning, and this is pretty common, you know, you were comfortable, you weren't struggling, you were doing well, you're making some pretty decent money, working some great clients. And we took you through this process, which is challenging to say the least. I mean, it's not an easy process to get through. What would you say it was about the structure of the program itself that made this easier for you to go down the path?
Yeah, so I guess there are really three things. One is I think that the curriculum that you've developed actually makes a lot of sense. The lessons that you have stepped through from some topics like we were just discussing around positioning and packaging your offer to much more concrete ways of how you deliver and communicate that positioning in a way that acquires clients. So the structure and the logic of the curriculum that you have is one piece. The other piece is actually part of my answer to the mindset question, which is having the accountability of, first of all, in the program, you've got twice weekly calls. Second of all, have interactions directly with you where I would be accountable for presenting the results of my work on these lessons. That accountability, I mean, that's always magic, right? If you tell yourself you're going to do something, it's really easy to go off and do something else. At least that's my character. I'm sure a lot of people struggle with it too. If you tell someone else you're going to do something, well, now you've got to do it because someone is looking. And that
No, that's
accountability.
just you, Chris. You're the only one. No one else has ever said that. I'm just kidding.
But
That's
yeah,
all of us.
that accountability was really an important part of it, and not just accountability to to you personally as a teacher or mentor or coach, but also there are lots of other really smart and interesting people that are in this program at the same time, and those twice weekly calls, the Slack channel that you actually have interactions with those people, and you see, oh, these people may have completely different businesses from mine, yet they have similar challenges, and we can work together to provide insight on, here's your video sales letter. What do you think about it? Here's my first video that I want to post on LinkedIn. What do you all think about it? And getting that feedback was really, really helpful in terms of partly the accountability, right? Whereas I'm going to show these people something. Now there's a bunch of people that are looking, and I'm going to do the work really well, and I'm going to do it consistency as I said I would. But also that they have really great ideas, and there's really helpful input not only at the the instructor level, the services that you're delivering, but also the peers that you're working with in the midst of the program. Some of them are further ahead than you, some of them are just starting, and now you're in the middle and you can give them additional advice. It's a really great way of reinforcing the learning and making sure that you're actually doing the activities.
Awesome. Chris, we're just about coming up on the end of 2019 here, looking forward to 2020. I know you've got a bright year ahead of you. Tell me a little bit about the results you've gotten from the program and what 2020 looks like for you.
Yeah, so I'm in a position right now where the business that I have booked for the first half of 2020, if I didn't do much else other than that business, I would already be significantly further ahead than I was in 2019. Now, I want to state that that's not the case. That's not my intent. I'm going to keep going with things. But right now, what I was able to achieve with the help of this program was I tripled my revenue. My forecast revenue for 2020 is now 3 times what the forecast revenue was for 2019. And I have 5 times the number of clients.
And we're going to make sure you follow through on that in 2020, Chris.
That's right. I mean, so, and, that's a good point. So I have triple the visible forecast revenue for 2020 now. If I continue the business development process, I can only imagine that increment will be higher.
Exciting times, my friend. Let me leave you with this. If people are watching this video and they're like, I don't know, should I do this? Does it make sense? Is this guy the real deal? Is this program going to deliver the goods? What would you say to them?
I would say really simply, it just does. It just does. It works really well. It puts you in a frame of mind where you take whatever it is you're doing and how you've been doing it, and you think of it in a systematic way that absolutely must include business development with a structured pipeline management process. And if you feel you don't need that, I personally think you're crazy. You absolutely do need it. But you're going to come into the program thinking, maybe I can get away with not doing so much of it. you'll come out of the program realizing you cannot get away with that. And not only that, it's not the worst thing in the world. You may feel like you're a person who hates sales. I loathe sales. If you tell me sales in general, can't stand it. What is conveyed in this particular program, I guess you could call it sales if you want, but it's something different than that. And you'll learn to do something that grows your business in a way that feels authentic and real and gives you the results that you want.
I was going to wrap up there, but I want to pull at that thread a little bit because it's a really important point. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you find troublesome about traditional sales approaches and methodologies?
I think it's probably just the voice of experience and how many ridiculous and annoying phone calls and emails and LinkedIn messages I've gotten from people selling me that has nothing to do with anything, selling it in a way that is poorly articulated, that's ham-handed, overly aggressive, all of these different things of just trying to shove nonsense down my throat versus this other approach. This is not what you're going to learn in 90-day pipeline. What you'll learn in 90-day pipeline is how to produce a steady stream of material that actually attracts the right clients. You're not pushing anything. You are saying what you offer, what you believe, and what your value is, and you're letting people come to you on that basis.
And then when they come to you, they're ready to go. They don't see you as a salesman or somebody trying to sell them a used car. They see you as a trusted advisor and an expert. And that's a very different kind of conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, they're definitely already halfway there. It makes much bigger difference than if it feels like a cold call. It's like, here's a thing I'm going to sell you, and don't you want to buy it? Don't do that. Don't limit yourself by thinking that's what you have to do as your only alternative for growing your business.
Chris, I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to share your story, my friend.
You are very welcome. I only would conclude by saying that this was a fantastic program, and I do highly recommend it to anyone who's looking to grow their business in a way that feels authentic and real, and that they'll feel good about at the end of the process.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris.
All right, you're welcome.